What is up, everybody? Hey, my name is Ryan, and welcome to our Reflections podcast. Hey, there's a story that I love in the Hebrew Bible in the Old Testament. It's in Exodus chapter 3, and God has come to this man called Moses, and he said, hey, I want you to deliver my people out of Egypt. And Moses, has this back and forth with God, but one of the things that Moses says to God is like, hey, who should I say sent me? Like, who are you? Which is fascinating on many levels. Like, yeah, who is this guy that appears who is this God who appears in the burning bush and gives Moses this command? And who should Moses say is the one who's sending him? And so God says something, it's kind of a mysterious response that is a bit of like a non-answer answer. And so God kind of says something back to him like, I am who I am, or I am that I am. And biblical scholars and commentators have like a field day with this because in the original Hebrew, it's something like this. It's what God responds in Hebrew is Eya Asher Eya. And this from Hebrew into English, and again, it's not always easy to do this one for one, but it's something like I will be what I will be, or I am that I am, or I am who I am. But the word Eya, so it's Eya Asher Eya, and the word Eya, which is EHYEH. Of course, this is the English transliteration of the Hebrew. So these are English letters, but if you look at it, it's like a EHYEH. That word literally means to be, like to be, to exist, being, to be. So God might have been saying to Moses something like, I am being, or that I cause all things to be, or even that I am existent. So when Moses asks, like, who should I say sent me? It could be that God says, tell them that I am being. You're like, what? I love that response. Now, and there's one translation, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. It's in Greek, and it's actually literally translated as the one who is being. And it's incredible. So it could be that God is saying to Moses, tell them that the one who is being itself, or existence itself, that's the one who is sending you. And then later, God commands Moses, he's like, hey, call me. In the English, it's the Lord, but it's the word, it's in the Hebrew. The Hebrew is YHWH. We call this Yahweh. And this is the name, it's like the divine personal name of God that God gives to Moses and the people of, later the people of Israel to use when talking to God or about God. And this word Eya sounds a bit like Yahweh. And so many scholars think that the sacred name of God, in fact, has much to do with this idea of being or existence. And so that maybe even the divine name of God, which is Yahweh, is something like the one who is being, the one who is existence itself. And so in short, God's divine name, Yahweh, is rooted in being or existence itself. So I love it. Like Moses is like, hey, God, who should I tell them is sending me? And God just responds with like, hey, tell them existence or being itself is the one who sends you. And then later, God, like a couple of verses later, and this is in Exodus 3, by the way, in verse 15, God's like, hey, tell them the Lord. This is now his personal name. So he's telling them and Moses, call me the Lord. In the Hebrew, it's Yahweh. The letters YHWH, again, these are English transliterations of the Hebrew consonants. And remember, they don't use vowels in the Hebrew language. And so when he tells them, hey, tell them the Lord, Yahweh, it's sort of this similar thing. It's very much similar to this Eya Asher Eya. It's this existence and being itself is kind of like somehow related, shares the same root word verbally as existence or being itself. I love this. There's a modern theologian named Paul Tillich, and he says this about God. Because, by the way, remember, when talking about the divine, it's impossible to use any words that actually encapsulate God. There's no way we could do this. Everything we say falls short. But it's all we have, right? So we use metaphors and stories and analogies. And so we say things like, oh, God is like a warrior, God is a judge, God is a father. None of these perfectly encapsulate what God is like. How could they? God is divine, transcendent, otherworldly, and yet we only have this very worldly kind of experiences. And so we use our experiences to describe what God is like. And so, so Paul Tillich says this. Paul Tillich says that, he says, God doesn't exist. Now, he's a Christian theologian, by the way, so let this marinate for a minute. But he goes, God doesn't exist. Like a pen exists. A pen exists. I can hold it. Actually, I'm holding one in my hands right now. A pen exists. It has matter. It's made up of atoms. I can hold it. I can look at it under a microscope. I can break it. I can use it. It's matter. It's a thing. It's got atoms. But God is not a thing. God isn't a being that I can hold in my hand or examine under a microscope. God doesn't exist. Rather, he says, God is the ground of all existence. So God isn't a being. God is being itself. And I love this because it just shatters a lot of these preconceived ideas I have about God that do generally fit into a nice, neat box. But I want to worship and be in relationship with a God that is like almost beyond my own understanding. That's why he's God. He's so much more than I think of God. And so today, as you think about God and try to imagine what God is like, may you experience awe and wonder and think about God as not as like a pen that you can hold or kind of examine under a microscope, but God as the ground of all being. God as being itself, the sustainer and creator of all things we read in the scriptures. That's what God is like. And today, may you have an experience of that God. Amen. See you guys. Peace.
Hey, if you enjoy this show, I'd love to have you share it with some friends. And don't forget, you are always welcome to join us in person at Central in Elk River at 8:30, which is our liturgical gathering, or at 10 o'clock, our modern gathering. Or you can check us out online at clcelkriver.org. Peace.